In this video, I'm going to share with you how you can install and anchor in beliefs in a way that changes your life. I'm going to show you 5 techniques that you've never seen before, and I can say that's the case because I created these techniques. And I can tell you they'll change your life because I've used them to change my life. I've made millions of dollars through shifting my beliefs, and I've created a dream life for me and my family here in Hawaii. And not only myself, but I've helped hundreds of clients to change their beliefs, to change their life, to make millions of dollars, to live the dream. Before I teach you the techniques, though, we need to be on the same page as to how changing your beliefs can actually change your life. So let's break it down. Let's say that our life is the composite of the circumstances within which we live. Okay, what is a circumstance? Circum, around, stance, stand, all the things that stand around us. That is what makes up our life. So my life is my family, my wife and kids, the woman that I chose to marry. My life is the place that I live, the home that I live in. My life is the amount of money that I have in the bank. My life is the business that I have and the clients that I have. So all the things that make up the existence of my life, my body, the current health that I have, these are all circumstances, okay? So my circumstances are my life. But where do circumstances come from, right? Are they happening to me? Well, I don't know what the absolute truth is, but I can tell you that the perspective that I'm about to give you is one that gives you immense power. So this perspective, the answer to the question, where do circumstances come from, is they come from the results that I create, right? And so all of the circumstances of my life are my results. The wife that I have is the result of who I was being when I met her, the result of what happened that led me to meeting her. The kids are the result of what we did together to make kids. Like my business and all my clients are the composite of the results that I've created. So all of the circumstances of your life come from the results that you create, okay? Again, I'm not telling you I know the truth. I'm sharing perspectives that when you live this way, when you try them on, they give you immense power. So let's write that down. Almost forgot. Results are where circumstances come from, okay? So all of my results make up my life. Now, where do results come from? Again, here's a perspective that gives you power. My background is physics and math. Newton said, every action is followed by an equal and opposite reaction. Another word for reaction is a result. So I say that all results come from actions. Is that true? Sometimes people get results without taking action. I don't know, maybe, but I'll tell you what, that doesn't give me power. And what I'm interested in is the power to create a life that I want. So I live with the idea that all results come from one thing and one thing only: actions. Why do I live that way? Because when I know that results come from actions and my life is made up of the results that I get, then if I want a different life, I need different results. And if I want different results, I take different actions. It has me be in action and has me focus on what is the action that produces the result. It gives me agency, it gives me power. And so then the question becomes, where do actions come from? Well, you just do them, right? Well, I don't just mean whether you're taking action or not. Yeah, you either do an action or you don't do it. But I also mean, what's the kind of action, the quality of action that produces the result that you want? So I'm not just interested in actions, I'm interested in actions that are effective. And so what determines the efficacy of actions? Sure, we could say that, well, this action versus that, but within a particular action, what determines its efficacy? Right? Is every action, if everybody takes the same action, are they all going to get the same result? No. Why? Even though they're doing the exact same thing, they're getting different results because it's not the action that determines the efficacy. It's the way of being that a person has when they take that action. So all actions that are effective in producing the results that we want come from a particular way of being, right? I mean, just think about it for a second. Like you could be like really low energy and taking an action, or you could be really high vibe energy and taking the same action, and the second one's going to produce a better result. I mean, let's think of a business example. You go and you say the perfect thing to a potential client from a place of neediness and scarcity and attachment, and it doesn't work. But you say the exact same phrase at the exact same time of day with the exact same person in the exact same situation from a place of abundance and non-attachment, and suddenly they say yes. So the being determines whether or not we're even taking action. You could be somebody who's procrastinating and be somebody who is in action. But even more importantly, it determines the efficacy of our actions. So the actions that produce the results that we want, to produce the life that we want, come from a certain and particular state of being. So what do I mean by state of being? It means like, what's my attitude? What's my emotional energy? What's my feeling about the world right now? Like just think about like, is that person being kind or are they being a jerk? Like we know what being means. And you can also look at beings in the context of efficacy of action. So then the question thus becomes, where does being come from? Well, that brings us to the word of the day. Our being comes from our beliefs. Now, there was a Professor Richard Wiseman in the United Kingdom, a researcher, and he did an incredibly genius study. So he had a bunch of people come into a room and sit down. And inside that room, they were given instructions to just read this newspaper. That was the only instructions. This is kind of a weird experiment. I'm participating in this study. I just have to sit down and read a newspaper. Okay. It take about a half hour. We're going to read the newspaper for half an hour. So people are sitting in that room reading this newspaper. And slowly but surely throughout this half hour period, randomly, some people are just getting up out of their seat. There was no instruction to do so. They're just getting up out of the seat, walking up to the front, handing their paper and visibly being given cash, and they're walking out the door. So other people are sitting there. We're like, what the heck? This person is, did they get some kind of information I didn't get before the meeting or something? I heard the instructions. I'm just sitting here. I'm doing my job. I'm reading the paper. Why are some of these people getting up and leaving? And then come to the end of the study, about half the room is emptied. And then what's revealed at the end is prior to this study, they brought two groups of people in, but these people didn't know they were in two groups. They thought they were in one large group. But the two groups were these. One group was people who self-identified as very unlucky. And the other group was a group of people who identified as, I am a lucky person. And so these people were all given the same newspaper. And inside this newspaper, in a one little section, there was a classified ad that said in it, if you're participating in this study on this day at this location, and you read this ad, walk up to the front of the room, hand the paper in, and be given cash, and you can leave now. And what they found is that the people who believed that they were lucky, they're the ones that saw the ad and acted on it and went up to the room and got the cash and left. And the people left in their seats at the end were the people who believed that they weren't lucky. So what is that saying? That is saying that believing you're lucky, so to speak, means that you be that you're lucky when you're participating in a study, means that when you're looking at a newspaper, you're acting in such a way where you're noticing opportunities, you're noticing something that could be in your favor, and you're reading it, and then not only reading it, but you're not arguing with that fact, you're seeing the truth that must be for you, because I bet this happened. I can't guarantee it, but I bet this happened. I bet some of those 50 people or so that believed they were unlucky saw the actual classified ad and even read it, but probably said to themselves, no, I couldn't be that lucky where I would just be in this situation where I just get cash. That must not be for me. There must be some other rule, something that I'm missing because I'm not that kind of person, even reading it, but reducing the efficacy of the action of reading it because of the belief. Do you see how the belief shifts the being and the being shifts the action, and it doesn't produce the result that you want? When you believe that you're not lucky, but when you believe that you are, you see things, not only see the opportunities, but then you are willing to take the action on that opportunity because of the belief that you have, because of who you be. And so then you produce the action, you produce the result through the action of, in that situation, getting the cash and leaving early, and the circumstances of your life is you're whatever, $100 richer. And it is that simple. It is that simple. We have a belief about ourselves or about the world, and it creates a way of being. And that way of being informs whether or not we take action, and more importantly, the efficacy of our action. And that produces the results that we get, and that produces our life. Now, one little piece here that I just want to mark out. We've got this arrow pointing here from circumstances to beliefs. This is really important. All of the things that we believe are being supported by our circumstances. The world that I grow up in, the family I'm born into, the ideas of that family. We all learn about the world and about who we are. We come to know who we are through what our family members tell us, through what our friends say to us, our teachers tell us when we're young, and we start to believe that's who we are. Those are the circumstances create our beliefs. And the circumstances we're in today are creating our beliefs. The amount of money that I have in the bank, the amount of money that I make creates my belief about how much money I make and how much money I can make. Those things are closely associated. And so in order to have something greater than this circle of going around, I'm just believing the circumstances that I'm in, which is creating a being, which is creating actions, which is creating results of the same circumstances, around and around and around in a circle. Instead of it being a circle, we want it to be a spiral. What do we have to do? We have to break this circle at some point. We have to get involved with conscious will to shift our beliefs to be something other than what circumstances are providing evidence for and supporting, so that we can be on a new level, to believe something contrary to circumstances, so that we can be contrary to how we've been. So we can create actions at a new level of effectiveness to produce new results that produce new circumstances that will then support those beliefs. But eventually we're going to want to break out of that as well. That's the spiral around and around and around. Now, are we on the same page? It's not just some magical thing. And I'm not saying that I'm not open to the possibility that there is some kind of quantum entanglement where we shift our beliefs and the energetics of the way of seeing ourselves in the world don't also affect things in realms that we haven't figured out yet. I experience that as true. I can't say that I know that it's true, like in some scientific way, but I live as if it's true because it creates a more mystical, magical experience that gives me more faith in the process. But even without that, we can still nail it down to if you got that scientific mind and you're like, no, I want evidence. It's like, fine, cool. I've just laid it out for you. This is the simple physics. Just take that Professor Wiseman experience. This is the simple physics of how shifting your beliefs will shift everything in your world. It can't not. Okay, so now that you have that understanding, let's dive into the 5 techniques. These are the 5 techniques for installing and anchoring in beliefs in a way that changes your life. Now, I have a bonus that I was going to share with you at the end, but I realized I really actually need to share it at the beginning because it's going to make the example that I use make way more sense. So the belief that I'm going to use as an example is the belief I am a champion, which is something that I have consciously worked to install and anchor in as who I believe that I am throughout a number of years. And now I just live it as so true. It's like pervasively true in my being. Now, where that came from was the identification of looking back at my life and realizing that, wow, in competitive environments, I would do really well, but I never got first place. You know, whether it was in martial arts competitions or endurance racing or in business, when I first got into business, when I was in real estate, and competing, whatever. In all these situations, I always did well. I was always in the front, not the total front, okay? And so what I saw is, and this is with help from a mentor, is that like I actually just believed that I wasn't number one. I believe that I wasn't the best. I'm good, I'm great, but I'm not the best. And that realization had me, it's like, wow, that's just a story. I can drop that. In fact, my mentor told me about like working with Olympians, which he had, and he was looking at what is the difference between a gold medalist and a silver medalist. It's not their athletic ability. They are both fully capable of being gold. What is it that comes down to that determination as to who that gets gold or not? It literally is belief. At that moment where you really have to push, do you believe that you can be the person that finishes first or not? If you don't believe it, you unconsciously on some level hold back just enough to be silver or bronze. And so I was like super inspired by that. I was like, I am going to adopt the idea that I am a champion. I am the best. And I started cultivating that idea. Okay. And so the bonus is that what I did and what I do all the time now when I want to go on this journey of installing an anchor into belief, the first thing that I do is I take the words that I want to believe and I start to investigate what they actually and really mean, well beyond what my current understanding is. Of course, I know the meaning of the word champion, like somebody who's the best, somebody who wins in a competition and stuff like that. But what I didn't know is that there's more meanings to it than that. I mean, I kind of had an understanding of the idea that you can be a champion for people, but I didn't really have a strong sense of why that was the case or where it came from. And so I opened up the etymological dictionary. Now, an etymological dictionary, if you don't know, is a dictionary that shows you not the meaning of a word today that we use, but the history of that word, how it came to mean what it means today, and what it used to mean way back in time, usually all the way to Proto-Indo-European, like, especially if you're doing it through the English language. And what's really fascinating about that is the meaning of words change over time. But when you get connected to the history of a word, you can start to understand what it is you're trying to come to believe with more depth. Now, I believe that the language that we use has a lot to do with how we experience reality and the world in ways that are far beyond what we're consciously aware of. I'm a huge student of the philosopher Martin Heidegger, and he said language is the house of being. So it's not just a belief, a concept, and we're being that. It's like, no, what is the actual meaning of this language? What energy does it hold? What are all the symbologies and symbols that this language represents, both in its meaning today and historically? And I have found through my investigation of the history of words that we actually are carrying an understanding of their history without really realizing it. And so when I dove into the word champion, I found that a champion today is somebody who's the best. It means that because it used to be the word that represented a particular knight, like in royal times, in medieval times, where that knight would show up at the coronation for a king or queen when they were being crowned, and they would say, if there's anybody in this room or in this castle or whatever who doesn't agree that this person should be crowned king or queen, then I will fight you to the death. It was called the King or Queen's Champion. And so I was like, holy shit, a champion is somebody who is willing to die in a stand for the royalty of another person, right? For the right of them to be crowned. And that really inspired me because I really connected with how, like, wow, I love essentially being a champion for people in my work, seeing their greatness, and serving their royalty, so to speak, and helping them to be free and to have the greatest life as possible. Right now, I am championing you. If you feel my passion and you're watching this video, that's because you're experiencing me to be a champion for you. And I took these two ideas of being a champion for others and being the best, and I braided them together. And then through that understanding of both of these things, then I went through these techniques. So the bonus is to use etymology to find a deeper understanding of the words that are in the belief that you want to create. It's going to give you so much more to tie into when you use these techniques to install and anchor in beliefs. Now that we've gotten through the bonus and we've gotten through a shared understanding of how shifting your beliefs can change your life, let's dive into the techniques. You have never heard these before. I created them, unless you've heard them from me. Okay? Here we go. Number 1 is called contemplating causality. So the way that we hold things to be true in our minds is that we have an association between something that we already know to be true and something new. Like, there's a great book by George Lakoff called Metaphors We Live By. He's a cognitive scientist, philosopher, and he, through research and through, I think, some neuroscience research too, he showed that, like, all of the concepts we hold in our mind actually build from our embodied experience of being in the world. Like, one of the simplest examples is when you're a baby, being lifted up feels good and being put down feels not good. And if you look at the way that the brain is structured and meaning is structured, you realize that we say the markets are going up versus down because we have a shared understanding that up is good and down is bad. And that shared understanding comes from the shared experience of being lifted up by our mother and being put down by our mother or father or whatever, right? And so this embodied experience of up is good and down is bad expresses itself in more and more complex ways as we get older. Now, you could say that in your mind, as you trying to come to believe something new, what you actually want to do is to come to see how that thing's true because other things are also true. And so the way that I do it, I'll give you an example, is I use the word because as a way of forcing myself to see possibilities. So I might say to myself, the new belief, I am a champion, and then I put the word because, and then after it, I put something else that I already know to be true, like I'm a provider for my wife and kids. Now, I'm not trying to come up with something over here that I know is evidence of this. I'm trying to put something over here as a source just something that I know is true. So I'm a champion because I'm a provider, something that seems maybe it's related. And then what I do is I sit with that and I wait in the presence of that possibility that I am a champion because I'm a provider, and I see what I see. I let my mind show me how that could be true. In a sense, I'm asking myself, how is it true that I'm a champion because I'm a provider? And then what I see is like, wow, I am the best person in my family's life when it comes to making sure they've got a roof over their head, when it comes to making sure they're fed, and I am the best at providing that for them. Wow, okay. And I start to see a little bit of evidence for it. And what that does is it starts to make the idea that I'm a champion feed off the truth that I'm a provider, okay? I am a champion because I finish everything that I start. I know that I'm a finisher. I finish everything that I start. So I'm a champion because something that I know is true is that I finish everything that I start. Oh, wow, yeah. I am probably one of the best people that I know at finishing things. Wow, I kind of am the best. I am a champion in the sense of finishing things. You know, I might not get first place in every road race, but when it comes to finishing, yeah, I am the best. And I start to see examples of how I am the best. I am a champion because I love everybody. And so how does that make sense? I'm a champion because I love everybody. How does it make me the best? Oh, no, but that's why I'm a champion for people. So it's true that I'm a champion because since I love everybody, I want to help everybody. And so, yeah, I am a champion. You see what I'm doing? I'm taking something I know to be true, something that I already believe, putting the word because before it, and I'm putting the new belief before that. I'm speaking it all in one breath, and I'm asking myself, how is that true? And I'm allowing myself to see evidence and reason that it's true. And every time I see that evidence and reason, New neural synaptic connections are born. It's becoming more valid for me. Those associations are getting stronger. I'm mapping that meaning together, and I'm believing it more and more. Okay. Another way into contemplating causality, besides putting something because and then something else you already believe is true, is actually just to use what I call a prompt. So a prompt would be this: I am a champion because ... So I am a champion because, and I sit and I wait. I'm a champion because by giving people everything that I could possibly give them, I am serving at my highest level, and I am expanding in who I am, and the reciprocation of that highest service and impact comes back to me and gives me everything that I want. Oh yeah, that's one of the reasons that I'm a champion for everyone I meet, because I get more of everything that I give, and the reciprocation of that means that my life gets better and better. It's my strategy for living a great life, is to just be a champion for people. Oh yeah, that is true. I am a champion because, wow. Then I start to see all of the martial arts competitions when I was young, where I used to look at it like, oh yeah, that was a tournament where I lost, in the final round. It's like that was my focus before, but then I see, oh yeah, I was the best in that earlier round. I was the best in that fight. I was the best in that. I was the best in that. I was the best in that. And I see how many, like 99% of the things turned out to wins, and I was focused on the 1% that wasn't before, but suddenly I put that one aside and I focus on the rest. And so which one is it? Are you the best or are you not the best? I mean, I had a client once that was similar to this. He was a wrestling guy, and he was in his late 20s, early 30s now, but he had this story about his life as in his wrestling career. And he's like, I was a failure at wrestling. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I lost in the nationals. And I was like, you lost in the nationals, so therefore you're a failure at wrestling. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, but how did you get to the nationals? Well, I won the regionals. Okay. Well, how did you get there? Well, I won the states. Well, how did you get there? Well, I won everything in my whole state. Well, how did you get there? I just won. I won for years of winning, and then one loss, and his identity becomes, I'm the guy that lost. That's one belief. And there's a whole bunch of other things that you could be focused on that could be creating a powerful state of being. I'm not looking for the truth. I'm looking for this perspective that gives me freedom, that gives me love, that gives me power. So I say to myself, the contemplating causality, I am champion because, and then I wait. I call it asking and listening. The infinite creative intelligence of my mind, the voice of God, that still small voice of intuition within, it will finish the sentence for you if you be still and listen in the wake of that prompt, in the wake of that asking. I mean, you could try it as a question too. I like a prompt better. The question would be, why is it that I am a champion? And then just sit and listen, and an answer will come. Okay? And when the answers come, when the reasons come, when you're contemplating causality, write that shit down. Write it down, because when you write it down, well, you can go back and look at it and reference it, but it also just substantiates it more. It makes it more real when you're taking note of it. Okay? Just like when you're studying for an exam or something like that. All right, that's the first technique. The second technique is actually something I created by reverse engineering a process that I learned from Shinzen Young, a Zen Buddhist meditation teacher. And the process that he teaches is a process of seeing and pulling apart. And what he teaches you to do is, with your eyes closed and you're meditating and you're watching your internal experience, is if you hear yourself saying something, you hear a sound outside or inside, you say to yourself inside, hearing, and then you come back to watching your breath. If you see an internal image in your mind's eye, you say the words seeing, and then you come back to your breath. If you feel something in your body, you feel something like the air on your skin, you notice a feeling, you're aware of your feeling, you say feeling, and you come back to your breath. Now, the reason that he teaches you to do that is by witnessing your internal experience and noting the distinct modalities of that internal experience. That distinguishing of the modalities moves you back. It pushes you more into a place of witness of your experience. It's a beautiful practice. It's still part of my practice today, witnessing internal experience and distinguishing the different modalities of that experience. Now, when I say it moves you back, it moves you from being subject to an experience to being object to that experience, to being able to be witness of it, right? And that's a beautiful thing, to create peace and freedom from subjective experience. The thing with believing is a state of being is a way of being that's alive in you when you are expressing a particular belief. And so the reverse engineering idea is that, like, actually when we're cultivating freedom, yeah, we want to do Shinzen Young's, do a meditation technique where we're getting out of the experience. But when we're cultivating a way of being through adopting a belief, we actually want to become subject to an experience. And so I just reverse the process, and I call it speak, see, feel. Now, speaking would be the kind of parallel to the hearing internally, but I'm going to use my mouth to say my belief out loud so that I can hear it in my mind. Yes, you could just say it to yourself inside, but here's why I say speak out loud. From my study and understanding, the internal dialogue that we have is actually an echo of our external dialogue. That before we had internal dialogue, we had external dialogue. We spoke before we could hear our own thoughts and hear words inside of our head. Like from what I've read and understand, first we danced, and then we made sounds while dancing, and then those sounds started to become symbolic of certain emotional expressions, and then symbolic of things in our world or activities, right? And so then those sounds that were representing activities and things started to become more kind of codified and recognizable, and then we would be able to communicate with each other. When I made this particular sound, you knew I meant referred to that activity. Then we could start to talk and communicate. And in the same way that you might hear a bang today, and then tomorrow you think, oh, I remember that bang yesterday, and you can hear the bang in your head. We also have the echo of the sounds that we were making to represent things symbolically in the world, and that became language. That's how we talk. So the internal talking is an echo of the external sounds that we were making, the external talking. In the same way that we evolved to have the words inside of our head be an echo of the words we were using with our mouths, as we grow up, the thoughts that you personally have inside your head are the echo of the sounds that you have heard. People say, the things you've heard people say. Somebody said, oh, you're a loser, and you adopted that as an internal dialogue. Or you might say something like, oh, I'm such a loser. And then you start to say it inside your head as an echo, and it becomes repeated thousands of times more inside your head than you say it out loud. But once is enough to kick it off. So we want to be very conscious and careful of the way that we speak, because the way that we speak creates the way that we think. It creates our beliefs. It creates our way of being, and it's our actions and their efficacy and the results and the life that we get. So the first thing we do is to say the belief, speak, I am champion. And then we want to see it. The reason we're speaking is to see it, because we want to start to bring all these other modalities of experience together. We want to see it inside of our mind's eye. But how do you see a concept like I am champion? How do you see a belief? You can't. What am I going to picture the dictionary inside my head and the definition? Like that's not it. That's not going to do anything. I want to see me being a champion. If I want to believe that I am something, I want to see me being that. So how do I see myself being a champion? You have to take the concept of the belief and apply it to a context. Okay, so what do I mean by context? A person, a place, a thing, a relationship, a situation, right? And so you could just, if you're doing this in the morning, which is my favorite time to practice this, I start my day by contemplating causality, speak, see, feel, and I'm going to speak out loud, I am a champion. I have an extended version, which is I am champion for everyone, and I deliver or die trying. That's the long version, okay? Over time, these things become more substantiated. You see reasons in them, and you add to it. But let's just say I am a champion. I'm saying that out loud, and I'm saying that with my mind already thinking about a situation. I'm thinking about the clients that I'm going to be with today, or I'm thinking about the meeting I had with my friend at the rock gym, or I'm thinking about going to my kid's school, and I am taking that picture in my mind of that situation, and I'm injecting the concept of I am champion, my belief, into that context. And what happens when we apply a concept about who we are or about the world, a belief, into a context, that context comes to life in a new way. And so I'm going to see myself at the school with the other parents, and I'm going to see the kids, and I'm going to see myself being a champion for the kids. I'm going to see myself being the best that I can be as an example for all the kids there. I'm going to see myself championing the other parents to feel comfortable in this new school environment. If they've just joined this private entrepreneurial school that my kids go to, I'm going to see myself supporting them and offering help for them. I'm going to see all the things that involve being a champion in that image. And what's going to happen is the third word here. I'm going to start to feel what it's like to be that. Because when we can see something in our mind's eye, then we can feel it, okay? And if we want to see something, we have to speak it, and we have to speak it into a context. Speak, see, feel. Why do we want to feel it? Why is it so important? Neville Goddard wrote a book years ago called, I think it was Neville Goddard, The Feeling is the Secret. It's kind of like an old New Thought book, but he kind of figured this out before neuroscience did. But like when you're feeling something, like neurochemicals that give you the experience of feeling also create the possibility for new neural synaptic connections to be created. So if you want to build new neurology around a new idea, if you want to map something conceptually in your mind at a neurological level, you need these neurochemicals that give you quote unquote feelings and to be present. And so you have to feel it to come to know it. Like when we have fear, we remember that shit. We remember it. You know, if there's something that's like a really strong smell, you remember it, because when there's a visceral feeling, there's a strong sensory experience around it, like it just gets coded more effectively in your mind. So you want to feel it. So in order to feel it, for most people, you need to see it. In order to see it, you need to have the concept present and inject it into a context. I say, so pick a place, pick a situation, pick something coming up on your calendar that day, and speak your belief in your mind into that out loud with your mouth. Your mind follows your mouth. All right. Ready for number 3? Here we go. Sowing seeds. Now, this is about taking action in the world. Now, when you take an action in the world, most people think, oh, the best reason to take an action is because you might get the result that you want. That's a good reason. It's my third best reason for taking an action, not the number 1 reason. You can't win if you don't play, right? So if you want to win, take the action. We kind of covered that a little bit earlier. But that's the third best reason. The second best reason to take an action is because whether I get the thing that I want or don't get the thing that I want, I learned something about how I took that action and its efficacy. So I learned something in that. And for me, learning something is way more valuable than getting a win, because the more I grow, the more wins I'm going to get downstream anyway. So actually, for me, the reason to take an action over and above the fact that I might win is because I'm going to learn something. It's even more motivating for me. But that's still the second best reason to take an action, that I might learn something from the result, whatever result I get. The number 1 reason to take an action, this is what sowing seeds is about, is that every time I take an action, I teach myself that I am the kind of person who does that thing. If I take the kind of action a champion takes, then I become more wedded to the belief that I am a champion. If I'm out there helping somebody to become free, championing somebody wherever I go, I'm inculcating truth into the idea that I'm a champion for everyone, and I set people free. I deliver, or deliver, deliberare. There's my etymology again, to set free. For me to deliver or die trying is to set people free. That's what I'm a champion of. I'm setting you free right now from previous beliefs so that you can have new beliefs and live a greater life. That's who I am. That's how I show up. And it's something that wasn't always the case, by the way. It's something that I have generated consciously through these practices. And so when I see myself as the best, when I see myself as a champion for other people, that's the first piece. But then if I'm taking action, that's the expression of that, I am becoming that more and more and more. So I say that every time I take an action that is the kind of action a champion takes, I am sowing the seed of that way of being and that belief in me. It's becoming more true. Another example of this, and where I kind of really came to see this, is when I did CrossFit 15 years ago. I did it for 7-8 years. I loved the CrossFit community. It was a load of fun. I ended up getting injured too much because I'm extremely competitive and I pushed myself way beyond where it was safe to go. But in any case, that's not the point. The point is that the CrossFit culture is so strong. And one of the things that's strong about it is that they consider everybody who's a member of a CrossFit gym an athlete. And when I first joined, I was really uncomfortable with that, because for me, an athlete was somebody who was a professional getting paid for playing a sport. And that certainly wasn't me. I didn't see myself that way. It felt like I was taking on somebody else's identity that wasn't appropriate. And yet, after a while in CrossFit, everybody referring to each other as athletes, I started to take on this idea. And once I took on the idea of an athlete, my relationship to going to the gym and to working out changed, and it changed forever. Because no longer was I a guy that wasn't an athlete trying to make sure I got my workouts in, but I became a guy who was an athlete. And so if I got sick and then as soon as I got better, it wasn't like, oh, I got to get myself back to the gym. It was like, I can't not go to the gym because I'm an athlete, and that's what an athlete does. And so this idea of who I am, this belief about who I am, changed my whole relationship to fitness. And still now, I'm not in CrossFit anymore, but I still see myself as an athlete. And as a result of that, if we go on vacation or stuff, I'm still working out. If I go on a work trip, I'm at the gym early in the morning, working out is part of the expression of who I believe that I am. It's not something I have to try to do, because I believe that I am that. And every time I go work out, and I feed that belief about who I am, and I feed that way of being. And so if it's true, then what I want to do is I want to use that. I want to sit down in the morning and ask myself, okay, if I am being a champion today, then what specific actions am I taking because I'm a champion? And I create myself a little to-do list, especially in times where I really want to practice activating this. Because whilst contemplating causality, speak, see, feel, while that stuff is going to powerfully create the experience in your body of being that and set you up for that kind of way of being during the day, nothing is as powerful about teaching you who you are as taking the kind of action that kind of person takes. Right? And so these little seeds can grow a massive, powerful way of being in you. It's like acorn into oak tree. Okay, so what are the seeds? Again, you just ask yourself, when I am being a champion, what am I doing? And if it's a bit too open-ended, when I'm being a champion today in this situation, what do I do? What do I say? Who do I call? What do I ask? What do I not say? What do I not do when I'm being this thing that I believe that I am? Then you've got your list of executable actions. You just go and do those every single time you do one. Look, that's the best reason to do it. Just, you don't even have to get a result. Doing it creates you. Doing it deepens the belief. Doing it has you believe that more and more deeply and has you become that more and more. So that is sowing seeds. It may be the most powerful one on this list. But let's move on to number 4. To run with this metaphor a little bit more, this one is called harvesting fruit. This takes us a little bit back into the realm of the mind. This is something that I would do typically at the end of the day, but you could do it anytime. And what is the fruit that we're harvesting? The fruit is also the action. So the seed is the action, but so is the fruit. One of the ways that I articulate this is doing is both the seed and fruit of being. Doing is both the seed and fruit of being. So we already talked about how every time I take an action, I am planting the seed that grows into more of that way of being, right? And as I be that way more and more, what's going to happen is that even without making a list in the morning is what kind of things did a champion do and then going and doing those. Without the list, I just show up automatically, unconsciously being that way. And the kinds of actions that a champion takes tumble out of me. I just do that stuff without even being aware of it. I become like that more and more. So much so that people are going to start to say to you, wow, if you were using the same belief, you're such a champion, huh? You're like the best at this. Or like, yeah, man, you are so committed to other people. Wow. And it's like you start to get this feedback. It's like, holy, and I'm telling you, the first time this happens, when somebody says to you your belief that you've created about yourself verbatim in the exact same words, it's like kind of freaky. They're like, dude, are you like reading my journal or something? Like, how did you know? So what happens is that action tumbles out of you when you're being this more and more. And so that's the fruit. The action that just shows up as an expression of your way of being that you've created through adopting, anchoring in, and installing a new belief, that is the fruit. That action is the fruit. Now, we also know it's the seed, right? Because it creates more of that way of being, but you don't want to miss the fruit. The fruit's the good stuff. And so how do you harvest that fruit? It's simply a process of self-reflection. If at the end of the day, you sit down with your journal and pen before you go to sleep and you say, where was I being a champion today? What action did I take? What did I say? What did I do that was the expression of a person who's a champion? Here's what I promise. You will always see something. Look, my friend Clayton says, there is infinite evidence for everything in every direction, which I think is true. If I want evidence of something, of this thing in that direction, I look for it, I'm going to find it. If I want evidence of this and look for it, I'm going to find it. And so if you look through your day for evidence of you being that thing that you believe you are, you will find it. You will always find fruit. There is always fruit. And the more fruit you collect on a daily basis, the more you establish that way of being in your body. You're collecting evidence of the truth of your belief. And seeing that evidence day in and day out is going to create greater and greater awareness for it. And as you become more aware of the truth of you being that, when you sit down and look for fruit, you're going to see more fruit. So the more fruit you collect, the more fruit you harvest, the more fruit there is. It's like, imagine if I went out to one of my citrus trees and I took oranges off it and I went back tomorrow and there were more. And then I took oranges off it and then I went back tomorrow and there were more. That's what it's like when you harvest the fruit of your belief. When you harvest the fruit, when you look for the actions that you took that were an expression of that belief and that way of being, you will go back the next day and there will be more. Your orange tree becomes like just one massive pile of oranges. It's absolutely awesome and it's extremely powerful and it only takes a few minutes at the end of your day. You put your head down on your pillow, filled with the fruit of who you are. You wake up the next day, more of that and more fruit will be produced. So work that technique. Let's move on to number 5. You ready? Here we go. This one is so fun because it's so out of left field. You did not see this coming. This one is called acknowledgement. So the reason I started using this as a technique is because I noticed that as I started cultivating beliefs about myself and seeing myself in a particular way, I started noticing other people in the world that were that way too. One of the things I used to cultivate was the idea that I have the body of a god. I heard a woman once say that about her husband. I was like, damn, that is so cool. How you see your husband that way. He's got the body of a god. I was like, and I wouldn't mind having my wife say that about me. And like, what a powerful thing to see my body as a Greek god, and to see myself having the capacity to actually generate that level of fitness in my own body. The idea of the longevity, the vitality that would create, it got exciting to me. So I started cultivating that idea of myself. And what I started to notice is I started noticing other men who had the body of a Greek god. That might sound a bit intimate, but just noticing their fitness, noticing their vitality, noticing their strength, right? And so it's just like the simple thing. Like if you buy a blue car, you start seeing blue cars everywhere. So that's not fully what acknowledgement is yet. I'm setting you up for understanding it. But what I noticed myself doing is not just noticing other guys that were super fit, but acknowledging those guys. Like, dude, way to crush it. Like, I know what kind of work it takes to create a body like that. Awesome. And what I noticed is that when I both saw what I was adopting as a belief in me and a possibility for me in other people, and use my mouth to acknowledge it, what happened is the love that I was giving by championing that person, by giving them acknowledgement for that thing that they are being and expressing that I am adopting as a belief myself, by giving person love for that and acknowledgement for that, it went into me too. And it's like when you buy somebody a gift and you give it to them and they don't even have to give you anything back, just them receiving it, like that, you feel loved by giving love. And so I was like, wow, if this is working to make me believe that I am something, then I'm going to just lean into this. And I'm going to start intentionally looking for and acknowledging that which I want to see in myself in other people. And it's the most fun thing ever to create a belief in who you are. Like if you wanted to have the belief that you're beautiful. I had a client once who thought she was ugly. She was gorgeous, but she thought she was ugly. And I said, start seeing the beauty in other people and acknowledging the beauty that you see in them. And she just went out and did that. And the more she saw people's beauty and called them beautiful, the more she inadvertently, automatically, without even realizing it, started to adopt an idea of herself as beautiful. Because what's happening is you're activating the possibility of beauty in the arc of relationship between you and another human being. And that is alive. That possibility of beauty is alive. And it's alive not just as a concept, but it's alive in the context of love, because you're acknowledging and you're giving. And so you have the concept of beauty in the presence of love, and that spreads into everybody involved. They get it. You get it. People that, if there are people standing by and witnessing it, they're going to feel more beautiful too. Everybody gets to feel more beautiful. You, them, the bystanders, when you speak acknowledgement of beauty, everybody gets it. So acknowledgement creates the belief and the possibility in everybody involved, because acknowledgement is an expression of love, and love creates. It's one of the most fun ways to create a belief in who you are. So that's the technique. Look for it in other people, acknowledge it in them out loud when you see it, and you get to have it just as much as they do. So these are the ideas about how to install and anchor in beliefs in ways that will change your life. If you practice this on a regular basis, your life will transform radically. I've seen it myself. Like I said, I'm living my dream life. I have clients that are living incredible dream lives because they've done this work. It's work. It's not necessarily easy because it takes work, but it is simple. Okay, so watch this video as many times as you need. Share it with a friend that you think could be served by learning how to install and anchor in beliefs in a really powerful way, that loves some new ideas too, a new angle on it that can give them something fresh to work with. And if you want to dive in deeper in any of this, or if you want to learn anything else from me, go check out the links down below. I'm sure there's something there that will be helpful for you. Most of all, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I love you, and I'll talk to you soon.